welcome everyone now and in the future to another episode of Inside CKP. Before I introduce my illustrious guest, let's go ahead and pay the bills. Inside CKP is brought to you, of course, by Chris Kennedy Publishing. You can go to chriskennedypublishing.com for all your sci-fi, military sci-fi, space opera, fantasy, nonfiction, you name it, they've got it. Go there, sign up for their newsletter. It's if you want to stay abreast of all the upcoming news. In fact, you can even become a pre-reader if you join that and get all kinds of free stuff as well. Of course, you can support Chris Kennedy Publishing as well as this show through their Patreon. You can find everything on all their books on their website, and also follow them on Amazon. It's very important. You'll help them out there if you follow them there. If you want even more news, join the Chris Kennedy Publishing Facebook group, and as well as for shenanigans, join the Factory Floor, and of course the 4HU Facebook groups too. You can get news there, but if you want the most up-to-date news, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get everything as it comes out. And of course, if you're watching this on the CKP YouTube channel. With all that said, I am pleased to introduce to you Ian J. Malone. He is a author, fellow podcaster, cook, sports guy. He's got lots of things going on. We're going to talk about a lot of that today. So Ian, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And where can people find you?
I appreciate it, man. I'm happy to be here. I'm easy peasy, man. IanJMalone.net is where you can go to find everything about me and my books. And then I'm on Facebook and Twitter. I'm more active on Twitter than I am Facebook, but I'm on both.
All right. And I'm throwing those up for you right now. So let's get into it. So Ian and I met, I want to say 2019 at LibertyCon. It was the first time.
Right.
It was the first time we met. Of course, it was face to face, drunk in a bar. Well, I was. I don't know about him, but
non-sober. We'll go
non-sober.
With that.
Yes,
not legally, not passing any legal limits.
Not driving anywhere. Anyway, so we were there, and for those of you who haven't been to LibertyCon, if you can squirrel away a ticket, it's a great time. It's more of a working con, I would say, for us. But anyway, so I thought I was a football fan or a sports fan in general, and then I met Ian and realized I didn't know jack. And so I went to LSU, and he knew more about LSU football than I did. I realized at that time I was a passive fan, so in comparison to him. And so and we're talking about sports because it's going to play a role in our conversation moving forward. So speaking of sports, what are you looking forward to there, Ian? What's coming up?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a college football guy. Mm-hmm. So right now we've got, spring football and trying to see what the rosters are going to look like and whatnot heading into fall. And, with this day and age of the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, there's constant turnover for every program in America, unless you're Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. So summer brings with it a fun time to be able to watch and see what the new toys in the toolbox are going to be able to do for you come fall. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I still follow racing. IndyCar season just kicked off in St. Pete a week ago. NASCAR is still, occasionally runs a race that doesn't suck. There's not a lot of those left on the schedule, but occasionally they run a race that's fun to watch. And so I watch those, and that's pretty well what I'm doing this time of year on a sports calendar.
Okay. Wait, so which one, what do you like better, Indy or NASCAR?
I think it depends. I think when NASCAR is at its best, NASCAR is a great watch, man. I mean, wheel to wheel, door to door action. Nobody does that better than NASCAR. When you go to a track like a Darlington or Bristol back in the day, I mean, it was so much fun to watch. Now, the people running NASCAR are watching too much Drive to Survive on Netflix and thinking, we need to be more like Formula One. It's like, no, you don't. You're NASCAR. You don't need to be running road and street courses. Like, that's what open wheel cars do, because open wheel cars can actually give you a show on those types of tracks. These big bulky stock cars, they suck. Like, they're not fun to watch on that. So anyway, but when NASCAR is doing NASCAR and not trying to be like everybody else, it's a lot of fun to watch. For road and street courses, I think IndyCar is probably the best series on the planet that nobody's watching. I mean, when those guys go to like a Road America or someplace where they can really cut loose and rip it, they're fun cars to watch, man. And they got some really talented guys in that series that know how to rip it up. So, when it comes to those who turn left and right, I'm definitely an IndyCar guy. When NASCAR is allowed to be NASCAR, I'm still a NASCAR guy.
Okay. So, what are you looking forward to next season, college football wise?
Well, I mean, listen, anybody who knows me knows I'm a Florida State guy. So I want to know what the Noles are going to do. It is a long, hard climb back to relevancy for Florida State football. And, the fallout that was Jimbo Fisher, the unmitigated disaster that was Willie Taggart, and then Mike Norvell inherited what was left in the pandemic. I mean, it's been a hard road back for Florida State, but we won 10 games last year. I think we've got some exciting new players coming in next year, and I think it's time to stake our claim back in the ACC. And so I'm, as an FSU guy, FSU alum, obviously I'm anxious to see how that's going to pan out. Kind of zooming back out a little bit, I think that big questions about what is Georgia going to be now. Back-to-back national champions, they lose a lot of players. Is this going to be the year that they finally need to take a step back and reload? What does that mean for Alabama? What does that mean for Ohio State? I mean, how's that all going to shake out? So, college football as a whole is always a fun to watch. I wish there were a few more teams involved, but, in this day and age of name, image, and likeness, there's only really 4 or 5 clubs out there, 4 or 5 universities that can afford to really pay the check to have all the top talent. And so they're going to rise to the top every year in the current climate, but still fun to watch.
Well, I've been such a bad fan the last couple of years because we travel full time, so I can't watch, half the games.
Right.
So I feel like I need to call you to see what's going on with the Tigers. Next year.
Dude, man, if LSU is anything like Florida State, you can download the LSU Athletics app on your phone, and you can listen to the radio broadcast wherever you go.
Yeah.
Like there are some nights that particularly the lower games when it's like Florida State versus Duquesne or something like that, and I just kind of want to know positionally how our guys are doing. Whether or not we're going to win the game or not is not in question. Those are the nights, man, I'll plug a game in on the radio and go kick it out by the pool. Or, back when we lived on the lake, I'd slide down onto the pier, man, with a, 12-pack of beer on ice and just kick it out on the dock and listen to the game on the radio for free. And you can do that anywhere.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I met Ian, I thought I was a fan, but his knowledge of football, and if you're interested in this kind of stuff with sports, books, anything like that, go check out one of his podcasts, Dudes in Hyperspace on YouTube. Here's the link to that. Go search Dudes in Hyperspace and you'll find him, and it's him and Rob Howe, our good buddies Rob Howe and Kevin Steverson. They talk about everything. And a lot of sports, a lot of books, cooking, which I'm gonna hit you up about here in a second. And these guys know a lot about a lot, and they talk about it. It's a pretty good show. I found it entertaining. Now that show's on hiatus right now, right?
A little bit, yeah, for right now.
Okay. Well, but they have plenty of back episodes, so you'll have plenty to watch. Do y'all have plans as to when that's coming back, or are you just going to feel it out with y'all schedules, or?
Not right now. Since I moved back home to Florida, I've been busy doing a lot of other things. There's some stuff here locally here that I've been kind of getting involved with, local radio, local production teams and whatnot. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Coming out of the pandemic, listen, we all looked at faces on screens for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of us who still do that for a living, for an everyday job, it still exists. And, I kind of hit a gear after a while, man, when I was just like, you know what, I'm kind of ready to get into a room with some folks
Mm-hmm.
rather than sitting around on screens and talking about sports or talking about grilling or whatever. How about we get into a room and crack some beers and talk about this stuff? And that's when crap can get real. And so moving back to Florida, moving back to Panama City and this space here where I actually know a good bit of people,
Mm-hmm.
that really kind of afforded me the opportunity to be able to do that. And I know people here who are in the media space and whatnot that they're down for that. And so rather than getting together on camera and talking about this stuff through webcams and mics, we get together down at the corner pub and we crack beers and get Philly cheesesteak sandwiches or chicken wings and talk about this stuff.
Oh.
And it's been nice to kind of get back to that type of an environment and that type of a setting. I still enjoy hopping online and talking with all of you guys. It's a
Mm-hmm.
blast.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, man, it is nice just to get back to basics and get real. And that's kind of something I've been trying to do a bit of the last 6 months or a year.
So this is just you personally getting together with friends, or are you gonna turn this into something?
Right now it's just getting together with friends, but with the potential to become something.
Ah.
Some guys in my crew are local radio guys. They
Mm-hmm.
work for local terrestrial radio,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's an opportunity there for some of us to get together and put together shows. And there's been talks of that, but I mean everybody's just super busy, and so it's a
Okay.
matter of trying to carve out a time when we can get away from day jobs and
Yeah.
family and all that kind of stuff, and be able to set aside that hour to be able to not just get together and BS, but really be able to have the time to plan and put together quality content. If we're going to do it, we're all professionals. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And until such time as we all have the time to be able to commit to that, we're going to just kind of keep it on ice and wait
Mm-hmm.
until we can.
So speaking of, it's not like you're new to broadcasting. Let people know, what your background in broadcasting and stuff. Because I've gotten a lot of help from you
Yeah.
with podcasting and stuff like that. But you have a fair amount of experience there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did radio broadcasting pretty much from high school all the way on through college and after college. So I was in broadcasting here for the better part of 10 years down here in Florida. I did sports talk radio. I did news talk radio. I did rock. I did country. I did classic rock. I did what was called album oriented rock back in the day. That format doesn't even exist anymore. I did. I think I already said top 40, but that was in there. So I
Mm-hmm.
did. I was the FM guy. I was a radio DJ. That was what I wanted to do. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't have streaming. We didn't have Spotify. We didn't have XM radio. It was the radio. That's what you turned on. And prior to about age 12, I lived in a really small town here in Florida between Tallahassee and Gainesville, and we had like two stations. Well, then 1989, my family moves to Tallahassee, and now I got a whole bunch of radio stations to listen to. And I'm listening to heavy metal, and I'm listening to techno, and I'm listening to country, and I'm listening to classic rock, and I'm listening to adult contemporary, and on and on and on it goes. And so I knew coming out of high school, that was kind of what I wanted to do. And sports was always my thing. And so I got an internship at the local rock station doing kind of backup sports writing for the sports guy. And I went for the next decade doing that, working as a jock at all these different stations. So learning how to be on air, learning how to work a mic, learning how to work a crowd at an event, learning how to do audio production in a production room and produce commercials and spots and sweepers and stingers and all that kind of stuff. I did all of that for the better part of a decade. And, then one day I kind of looked around and saw it might not be too much of a future in this. And I pivoted and ended up in just public affairs communications work, which is kind of what I do now outside of writing.
Mm-hmm. So, and for all of you that haven't partaken in Ian's productions, they are very well produced. He does drops and segments and stuff like that. He's got a radio voice, so he turns on his radio voice, and he does it's a very well produced show. So I recommend y'all go and check him out. And in addition to the Dudes podcast, you do a podcast for the CKP YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And called the Future Books podcast that you produce. And here's the latest episode with Jason Cordova.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you tell them a little bit about this episode and the podcast in general?
So I'm the producer for Future Books. Randall Willis is the host on that, and he does the recording. So every month he gets together with Chris and they preview what all is coming out from CKP that month, and Chris gives you a lot of inside look into here's what's coming from the 4HU, here's what's coming from Salvage, here's what's coming from Fallen World, et cetera, et cetera. And that's typically the first half of the episode. And then the back half, Randy will interview a spotlight author. And this month it was Jason Cordova, because Misfits with him and Eikenberry is kind of one of the big books that's out right now. And that's a biggie. I mean, for those who follow the 4HU, there's a lot of payoff in that book, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of stories that kind of come to a close. And set the stage for the next batch of stories that are going to come. But Misfits is a book that a lot of people have been waiting on for a while. Mm-hmm. And so, Jason comes on the show and talks a bit about where that story came from and how he and Kevin wrote it, and just gives you some backstory on that. So anyway, my job is then just to take those files and produce it. So, sound quality, sound mixing, noise reduction, a lot of that kind of stuff is what I do. Dropping in all your bumper music and your little sweeps from segment to segment, and just kind of the technical end of taking the raw sound files and making them what eventually drops through Apple Podcasts or YouTube or whatever. That's kind of my job. So Randy is the talent, as they say, and I'm the producer, and I polish it up and put it out to the world.
So let people know all the places that they can find that podcast and the Dudes, because I just tell them about the CKP YouTube channel. So
so you can catch Future Books right here on the CKP YouTube channel. We take the audio file and produce it into a video that is then uploadable to YouTube, so you can listen to it right here. But it is an audio show. All right, it's not a video show like you've got right here, where you can see both of our beautiful smiling faces talking to you, the listener viewer. All right.
We got the same haircut.
That's right. Same haircut, whole deal. That's why I live for ball caps, man.
Yeah. But, oh no, I embrace it.
I hear you, man. And props to you, brother. I do when it's clean shaven, but I'm feeling a little grimy today. So sidebar.
Yes.
But yeah, so but Future Books is an audio show, and so it is meant to be listened to, not watched. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, you can catch it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, all of those places. It's available. You just hit the subscribe button, and every time there's a new episode, it drops right down into your queue, and away you go. So we kind of, as a service to the CKP folks, produce it and put it up onto YouTube so you can get it here. But it's an audio show. That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
So can we? I know you're getting more into your local stuff, but can we expect to see any different content from you in the future, or are you focusing on other things?
Right now, kind of focusing on other things. My big, my big draw here lately, the big thing that I've been doing is just trying to ramp things up for the launch for Last Argonaut. Mm-hmm. This is a book that really took me some time to put out, and I'm really grateful to Kevin Steverson and his crew for not really putting a hard deadline on me for this one. They, to quote Kevin, let it smoke. Mm-hmm. For anybody who listens to Dudes in Hyperspace, we talk a lot about grilling and smoking, particularly. We've all, Kevin's got a smoker, I've got a smoker. And so we talk a lot about recipes and, tips for chips to use and seasonings and rubs and marinades and brines and a lot of that kind of stuff. And so, I can remember emailing Kevin, I guess, after about 7 months, and I'm like, guys, I'm almost there, but I just need a little bit more time to really put the topper on this. I think it's almost there, but I just want to play with it a little bit more before I send you the manuscript. And Kevin's words to me were, let it smoke, boy, Let it smoke. Bring it out when it's done. Don't take it out until, just let
Yeah,
it smoke.
yeah, I love
So,
Kevin.
yeah, so
So,
that was what I did, and so when the story was finally ready, it went off to Kevin, and then it went off to the editor, and and then once we finally got the green light that okay, here's the release date, March 17th. Well, now it's go time. It's booking podcasts, it's doing social media, it's booking ads, it's doing all that kind of stuff. So that's really, to your question, kind of been my focus here the last month and a half, is just kind of setting the table for this weekend for this book to come out.
so speaking of, here's the book. Here's the cover. The link is below. I've also put the link in the comments. It's the very first comment. So if you're looking for a good book, just click that link and or copy and paste it, and there you go. So uh, I can see a sports theme here.
Sure.
So let's talk. And I understand sports is a big part of this book. So let's talk about that. How and is that part of the reason why it took you so long?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this was probably the most challenging book I've ever written
Mm-hmm.
because, and Casey Azell and I actually talked about this just the other night on her show. There's a certain expectation when you write a book in anybody else's universe, whether it's Salvage Title, whether it's 4HU, whether it's Fallen World. Fans of those properties expect certain things in their stories. All
Mm-hmm.
right. And if you don't give it to them, you're kind of doing a bit of a disservice. Um, so there are certain notes that you need to hit. At the same time, I knew that this was going to be a very sports centric story. And for people who are sports fans, we need to see method to the madness for the actual game. All right. And the example I've used on several occasions is the movie Starship Troopers. All right. There's a scene where they all play some sort of weird futuristic sport, and it doesn't really make any sense. They're all just running around like crazy people and flippity doing all over the place and throwing some sort of weird ball. You don't really know how you score, what's going on. It's just, hey, there's this sport thing happening. And then, we're all going to take co-ed showers.
Yeah,
And
it's sports
as
balls.
sport as sports fans, we can't accept that. Like, it needs to make sense. There needs to be method to why things go the way that they do. We want to see, tactics. We want to see strategy. We want to see the chess match. That scene to me was written and shot by somebody who said, I need to make a sports scene, and probably wasn't a sports fan. And so it didn't, stuff like that does not pass the sniff test for people who are diehard sports fans.
Mm-hmm.
So straddling that line with this story and trying to fit something that I felt like would really make both sides of that coin happy was really kind of a tightrope to walk. But I felt like that we kind of got it in the end. Yes, this is a story about Warball. If you
Mm-hmm.
read Salvage Title, you have heard about it from Salvage Title on through the other 19 books, give or take, that are in that universe. It's been referenced many times, but you've never seen it. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the book. When buckle up, we finally tell you what Warball is, how it's played, what the rules are, what the field looks like, what the positions are. You're going to get all of that. But it's also a much deeper story about a town and a city and a group of people who are really having a hard go of it. Akala City, which is where this is set. And if you've read any of my short story stuff in the Salvage anthologies, you've seen this world. It's not what you know. It was devastated by a massive natural disaster here in the last year. The club was out of commission for a year while the planet was putting itself back together. Thankfully, the stadium wasn't massively damaged. They were able to get it back on its feet, but it took a year. And now the team is finally coming back to play. And they're not very good, but it's something that everybody can actually look forward to on Sundays. So Monday through Saturday, we're picking up the pieces of our lives. We're rebuilding homes. We're looking for jobs. We're searching for lost loved ones and trying to come to grips with everything that was the last year. But at least on Sundays, we can all get together back at the stadium and cheer on the home team and have something to smile about for a few hours. That's
Mm-hmm.
really kind of the story that's told here through the lens of this ragtag little team of players that is not very good. It's compiled of a bunch of people that most of the other clubs never wanted. They're having open tryouts just to fill out their roster because nobody wants to come play on this planet because there's really not much left of it. Um, it's a hard deal, but that
Mhm.
sets the stage for a cast and crew of characters that it's my hope by the time you get to the end of the story, you are really cheering for these guys, and you're cheering for their city. And so that's in a nutshell, a very long roundabout nutshell, kind of what Last Argonaut is all about. Yes, it's a sports story, but
Mhm.
there's also a much deeper story here about what it means to come together as a team, as a community, as a town, and how to lean on each other, realizing that the good of the greater whole is far more valuable than just what we can all do for ourselves as individuals. That's really kind of the battle cry of this story. And it took me a while to really kind of drill down and get that done right.
Mhm.
But I feel like we really got there by the time it went to edit. And my editor loved it. The other people who have read it and kind of blurbed it for me really, really love the story. And they all come back with that yes, this is a cool sports story. And for those of us sports fans, this hits all the notes. But at the same time, the story itself is one that we can really get behind. And
Mhm.
it is a root for the good guys story.
Yeah.
I've said it before. We open the back cover of the book with a quote from Herb Brooks, who was the head coach of the Miracle on Ice team, the 1980 U.S. men's Olympic hockey team. Great moments are born from great opportunity. Well,
Mhm.
for anybody who knows that quote and knows that team, that sets the stage for what you're walking into here. And so, it's my hope by the time we got to the end of it, it is something that fans and readers alike will put their fist in the air for and root for the good guys. That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, I love a good sports. I mean, a good sports movie, a good sports story,
Yeah,
where at the end the guy. I mean, even a comedy like the Replacement Players. Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know, by the end of that, it's like it's a comedy. There are a
yeah.
bunch of screw ups. I mean, absolute screw ups.
Oh yeah,
And but by the end, you got a tear in your eye because
sure.
they're playing for the guy next to them. It's the same reason why we like military stories and things like that.
Yeah,
It's not about just you; it's about
yeah,
you and working for the guy next to you.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, we had, I had this discussion with another podcaster a couple of weeks ago. Listen, there's a lot of people in sci-fi and nerd culture who be like, I don't like sports.
mhm,
Sports is not my thing, and I get
mhm,
that. All right, I totally understand that. I don't begrudge them that. But the one thing I would tell them, and I don't know if it's ever dawned on them or not, most people who watch sports are not there for the X's and O's. They're there for the story. They're
mhm,
there for the drama. How is that any different than what you're watching on Game of Thrones or on Star Trek or Supernatural or pick your franchise? We're there for the stories. Your boy Joe Burrow, all
mhm,
right, throwaway player at Ohio State, all right, is an Ohio boy, grew up in poor, poor, poor town in backwoods Ohio. Makes the dream, goes to Ohio State, doesn't do jack there, is a
mhm,
throwaway player, transfers to LSU, is never expected to do anything, steps in at the right time with the right offensive coordinator who understood what Burrow's skill set was. They pair together to have the greatest season in college football history that a quarterback has ever had. He
mhm,
gets drafted number one overall to the NFL by his hometown Cincinnati Bengals, and
mhm.
he takes them to the Super Bowl. Like, we're writers and we can't touch that.
Yeah, yeah. I was about
I
to
mean,
say it's a
that's
great story.
that's a great story. And sports is filled with all that kind of stuff, whether
Mhm,
it's underdog stories, people overcoming adversity, teams rallying together around each other to go get the grand prize, whatever that may be in whatever sport. In the drama that is sports is why most fans tune in. And it's really kind of the same when you get into the drama of books and the drama of story. That's why we're all there. We want to be captivated. We want to imagine what could be possible and watch it play out through the lens of our favorite characters, whether that's a space marine in a Casper in a 4-HU book,
mhm.
or whether that's a quarterback under a helmet for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we just like to see great stories play out.
Mhm.
And same deal.
So the description you gave for the last Argonaut reminds me a lot of, because I'm from Louisiana,
Yeah.
of the New Orleans Saints after Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
They became the heart and soul of that town. And then
Yep.
after that, and so Katrina hit in late '05, and I think Drew Brees came in that year or the following year. Don't quote me.
He
I have to look it
he
up.
was there when Katrina
He was
hit. I
already
want to
there.
say he had been signed like the year before.
Okay, so he's there, and man, he became automatically became a leader for the team, and that team playing just became the heart and soul for that city because they had nothing else at that time because they had
Yep.
just been uh, dumped on by Hurricane Katrina, and that city was ruined.
Yep.
And then in the '08-'09 season, all that led up to the '08-'09 season where I Can Die a Happy Man. The Saints won a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
and so that sounds your story of the Last Argonaut reminds me of that story,
Yep.
and man, that's something I can get behind, you know.
Yep. That's there's no coincidence there.
No, that.
So I live in Panama City, Florida. All right.
Mhm,
This is where Hurricane Michael made landfall in 2018, Cat 5 hurricane. I mean, this town is still recovering.
mhm,
We lost 85% of our tree canopy. So
mhm,
now we have tons of flooding problems. We have potholes and infrastructure problems galore. Um, I still have houses in my neighborhood that have tarps on them. Okay. And
mhm.
it's been going on 5 years now. So it's, we living here will show you very clearly just how bad those situations can get. And I have plenty of friends here who lived through Michael. They didn't leave, they stayed. And so I've heard the stories of, what that night and what that day was like. Um, when I set out to write Argonaut, I knew, okay, this is going to be a sports story. And like any sports story, it's about the speech, right? When you get to the end, the coach, somebody's going to give a speech to rally the team in the big moment in their darkest hour. And we've got to rise above and make this happen for whatever reason, win one for the Gipper, whatever.
Mhm,
And so when I started writing this, I knew like that is the secret right there. That's the sweet spot is how do I craft a story where that speech matters? Because everybody knows it's coming. All right.
mhm,
If you follow sports movies, sports stories, like the speech is coming. How do you make people care?
mhm,
And so I was, 2/3 of the way through the draft, give or take draft one, when it dawned on me, what if this tropical paradise of a planet that we're on here isn't so pretty anymore? You know, what if they were hit by this massive disaster and they're just picking up the pieces and the club is all they have to root for? And now imagine what happens if somebody's working behind the scenes to steal the New Orleans Saints out from under the city of New Orleans while all that's going on.
mhm,
That's what you have here. And
mhm,
so when you hit that moment toward the end, when they all look around and say, listen, if we lose tonight, that's the least of our problems. Like this city, this world, these people who have already lost so much, they lose that.
mhm,
And we are the line in the sand. We cannot allow that to happen. Regardless of what happens to any of us after this game, we cannot allow that to happen. And it is on us for the next 60 minutes to give them and this city everything we have to try and stop it. That was the speech. And so, living here in Panama City, living through all of that was the New Orleans Saints run and whatnot, that that was the eureka moment, man. And that was when this story really became real for me. And I've said it before on a number of other shows and other podcasts. That is the beating heart of this story.
mhm,
Yes, you're going to get sports and you're going to get action and on the field and you're going to learn strategy and you're going to do all those things, but that is the story that really keeps you turning the pages and wanting to know what's going to happen to all of these people. It's not the zoom action on the field that's there.
mhm.
Um, but it is what happens to the characters and what happens to the people and what happens to the town that's going to keep you moving toward the end of the book. That's what you're rooting for. That was my job as an author, was to build that for you.
Yeah, because I remember you talking about it, and you've been working on it for a while, and and I can understand. I mean, just developing a compelling story is hard enough, but then you've got to develop a game within
Right.
that story. It's hard work. So here's my question for that, which I almost got choked up listening to the description of it. So I'll have to read it, and I'll probably. So were you setting out to make people cry, or is that just a good
It's
side thing for you?
no, this is totally, and I make no bones about this, man. This is a feel good story. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when I sat down to write this book, and when Kevin and them approached me about it, one, we were coming off of the pandemic, and two, I had just finished writing two very heavy duty stories with Chris Kennedy that were set in the climax of the Guild Wars for the 4-HU. All right,
Mm-hmm.
I was, I'd done my fair share of heavy personally and as a writer. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was really kind of ready for something that's just fun and makes you smile. And when Kevin and them, approached me about trying to write this, that was really what I said was I want to write something that, yes, there are villains in this story. There are people that you really should be watching out for and rooting against. But when you hit the pinnacle of this, when you hit the peak of this story, I want my readers putting a fist in the air. I want them doing the chop. I want them doing the, whatever the motion is, whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want people ready to go to war, a la their favorite sports team.
Mm-hmm.
I want the feel good, we could be heroes moment
Mm-hmm.
by the end of this one. And so, you know, crafting the story, that was the objective, right? Was to get you to that end so that when you turn the final page, by God, you're smiling ear to ear and ready to go drink a beer on a boat. Like that's what you want to do.
So it sounds like you put a lot of yourself, at least in this book, and maybe other books. And now you have a radio background.
But
I'm assuming there's announcers, there's music, there's
oh God,
stuff
yeah,
like that going on. Uh,
sure,
Go
sure,
ahead and
sure.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I of course there's a PA announcer.
Mhm.
His name is Euchre. For anybody that knows old school sports, you can know exactly who that character is just by me telling you that's his last name.
Yeah.
So Don Euchre is the home PA announcer for the Ocala City Argonauts,
Hmm.
and he is exactly what you think he is. Old school war ball announcer who's pretty close to retirement, probably drinks a little bit more than he should, and
On
thus
air.
that on air. And so he's liable to say some things that most people would rather him not, but he's
Yeah.
very honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he's in there. As far as music goes, and
Hmm.
I hesitate to say this because it's not any kind of a spoiler, but it's just a nice, sweet little moment.
Hmm.
Uh, there is a character in Salvage Title in the original Salvage Title trilogy
Hmm.
who Kevin, alludes to the fact that this guy has an affinity for late 20th, early, 21st century music. It's what
Hmm.
he's always listening to. And so when it came time to kind of introduce a little bit of like a music element to Argonaut, I
Hmm.
just kind of reached back into Steverson's playbook, pun intended, and said,
Hmm.
we're gonna use this guy. Like we're gonna tap that a little bit because that's already been established with the fans that that's a thing. So
Hmm.
we're gonna go ahead and leverage a little bit of that and bring it back over here, and we'll do it that way. So
Oh yeah.
when you get to that point in the book, guys, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. There's another reference to we shall say, infamous Salvage character from Salvage lore that is referenced in Argonaut. So I did have an opportunity to kind of pay homage to what came before in the
Hmm.
Salvage books. With this one, with just little Easter eggs and name drops and stuff like that I think people will get a kick out of. So yeah, all of that is there.
I love a good callback. Yeah.
Sure.
So you talked about your radio days, and you did all these different types of radio shows, music, and everything. Did you have a favorite type of show that you did?
Probably rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I listen to a lot of different kind of music. All right. Casey and I talked about this on her show just the other night. I can go from Leonard Skinner to Massive Attack to Garth Brooks to Waylon Jennings to Gladys Knight to the Crystal Method to you name it. I zoom all over the place. with music taste. But rock was my first love. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my dad was that guy in the 70s that had the hair down to the middle of his back and played guitar in the Mexican restaurant just off campus to be able to pay for his dinner, when he
Mm-hmm.
was in college. So growing up, music was always on in our house.
Mm-hmm.
Record player, 8-track player, and then cassettes. It was always on,
Mm-hmm.
and rock was very much at the root of that. Allman Brothers, Skinner, Doobie Brothers, Marshall Tucker Band, Eagles, Joe Walsh and the James Gang, like all of that kind of stuff was, Cream, Derek the Dominoes, like that's what I cut my teeth listening to as a kid. And so rock radio, that will always be home for me. Being able to set up a set with ZZ Top, Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, and Pink Floyd, like that's home for me, man. I can
Mm-hmm.
do a lot more than that as a music guy, but if you want to know the bread and the butter, man, it will always be rock music for me, and so that's why rock radio would probably be home base.
So now, me, I can't I can't read and listen to music. I got to do one or the other.
Okay,
But I know a lot of people um, tend to maybe listen to music while they write, or before they write, or after they write. Do you do that, or do you have to have
sure.
quiet?
Yeah, no, I like to listen to stuff. It really depends on the day. There are times when I do find that I get a bit more productivity out of just writing in silence.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are times when, man, I hit a wall and I can't do anything, and the right song, the right tempo, the right lyrics, whatever it may be, sets the stage it kickstarts something in my brain that gets the creative juices rolling, and then away I go. I mean, I can be at a complete standstill with a story and hear Jet City Woman from Queensryche and be like, Starfighter scene, let's go. And I've got 3,000 words on a page, and it started just because I heard, and I mean, away we went. So music is very much a part of my process. Go to for me a lot of times will be classical or electronica stuff that doesn't have any lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I do find that is on most occasions easier to kind of concentrate on what I'm doing when I don't have lyrics going on. It's just the music.
Mm-hmm.
But occasionally, no. I mean, I have written whole scenes to Pink Floyd albums. Um, I mean, it. I've written Starfighter scenes to Top of the World from Van Halen. Like it, I have done that before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, typically the non lyrical stuff will be my bread and butter. But I can go silence and I can go lyrics when the time calls for it.
So, because lately I don't really listen to a whole lot of music because there's books and podcasts and things like that. And every now and then I'll go on a tear and I'll start listening to music and say, man, why don't I listen to more music? Because
Sure.
if I get motivated, I start moving,
Yeah.
things like that, and I get excited, and I was like, why don't I do this more often? And so it's good to hear that you use it as a motivation, or something to give you energy to do the things that you do.
Sure.
So the Easter eggs you were talking about,
Yeah.
do you allude to any specific songs?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Uh, there's one very clearly that I allude to with the Steverson stuff I talked about earlier. And if you read the
Mm-hmm.
book, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sports classic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the There are some other things I reference that I don't necessarily give you the band, but if you know anything about me, you'll kind of know where I'm coming from. I mean, listen, there was all kinds of a sports soundtrack that was playing in my head as I went
Mm-hmm.
through this process of writing this book. Whether it was Foo Fighters, There Goes My Hero, whether it was Panama from Van Halen,
Mm-hmm.
Thunderstruck from AC/DC, Eye of the
Love that
Tiger
song.
from Survivor, like all those classic sports, go kick their ass anthems. All of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff was a part of kind of the creative process that was The Last Argonaut. Um, some of that stuff kind of worked its way in there in the form of subtle Easter eggs, and some of it worked its way in there not subtle Easter eggs. It's beat you over the head with a bat Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to read it to be able to find out.
Okay. Yeah, because I love that if a movie, especially a sports movie or a military movie or something like that, has a good
Yeah.
soundtrack, man, that'll
Yep.
make a movie for you.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely, it will.
and
Well,
I,
and the
go ahead.
nice thing about fiction too is when you're dealing with an audience that already kind of has that acumen for that type of music and that type of context. It's not like you got to paint the lyrics for them on the page. Like if you can drop the song title at the right spot in the story with the right things happening around them in the scene, you're immediately playing that in the mind of the reader, and
Mhm.
everything can play out from there. Oh, that's fun stuff, dude. I love playing in that space all day
Yeah.
long. I've done that in lots of books that weren't this one. Like that's a go-to for me. I love to drop a song reference in a scene that just sets the tone for everything that scene is supposed to be, whether it's the upfront action or whether it's kind of some of the undercurrent stuff that's happening with the characters. You drop the right song title from the right band in the right place, and you take a scene to a whole nother level for the reader,
Mhm.
as long as they understand what that is.
Well, and you can use music to emphasize an action scene,
Mm-hmm.
or add to a comedy scene. And I'm thinking of two football movies,
Yeah.
and one of them is, and one of them's not a great football movie, but I liked it when it came out. Was Varsity Blues,
Oh yeah,
and when
dude, man,
you,
there goes my hero
yeah,
from Foo Fighters in that one.
so that one, and you reminded me of it with Thunderstruck, because there's a football scene where they're playing in the game and
Oh yeah,
somebody's teeing off on somebody, and that's when it says, you've been thunderstruck, and right as
yeah,
that guy hits him, and it goes boom, and the bass hits, and
yep.
it really spices up the
Oh,
scene.
dude, you can't go wrong with James Vanderbeek in a West
Yeah,
Texas accent. I don't
yeah,
want your life.
yeah. And then um, in the Replacement Players,
Yep.
where they're dancing to, is it Aretha?
Yes. I think
In the
so.
in the jail.
Yep.
It's an awesome scene. So
Yep.
I'm glad that you can incorporate these kind of things
Yep.
into that. So murder, or the game that you designed,
Yeah.
if you had all the equipment and everything, have you developed it to the point to where there are rules and you could play this game?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's no equipment. They don't wear
No.
pads. There's no
Oh,
pads. There's none of that. Like it's jerseys and shorts, and that's it. Now,
okay.
if you're some sort of a species that has like claws or pincers, like we have sheaths and things that you have to wear to kind
Mhm.
of level the playing field, so that if you're squaring off against a human, you can't just tear them up. All right.
Yeah.
There's also a force field over the top of the field, so that if you've got a winged species playing the game, they can't just take off and fly over everybody and run to the goal zone. Like there are things in place to be able to contain this, to try and, for lack of a less cliche way to put it, level the playing field so
Hmm.
that parity among the different types of species that play. And there's three different levels of FIWA Warball. So FIWA is like the NFL, right? It's the best of the best of the best. It's the first interstellar warball association. You've got the Mauler League, which is like your big beings, your big aliens. Then you've got your Cruiser League, and then you've got your Feather League, and so basically heavies, mid cards, and then lightweights. But there are rules in place for every one of those stages to be able to try and mitigate any advantage that physiologically one alien species would have over another, so that we can all play this out on a level field. Yeah, all of that is there. In 9,000 years from now, you could absolutely play this game. I have a rule book. I have a play sheet. I have full charts that break down positions, formations, different alignments, pre-snap motions, all of that stuff. I kind of built all of that before I even started writing the story, because I felt like, again, the sports fan in me could not do it that way. It's just not good enough to say, well, they threw the ball downfield and they scored a goal. Well, I mean, I need to know how that happened. How did they scheme that open? What was the strategy in order to make that happen? It's not just good enough to say, well, the player ran down the field and he was open and he caught the ball. Like I need to know how they created that opportunity, for it to matter to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I spent a good 3 months before I even started working on chapter 1 of this book, just crafting the game and crafting the rules of what make it what it is. So, yeah, that's all very much there.
That's very cool. Because here, I've been ignoring the audience here. Hold on.
As I say, I can't see the chat, man. So if we got
Yeah.
people asking questions, you got to tell me.
No, they're not asking questions. You're just making comments, just talking about back to our music conversation, talking how Marisa and Melissa's first panel with you was talking about music and writing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, guys, by the way, hello to everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
I should have said that earlier.
But I love it that you developed a team sport with weight classes.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool because that doesn't exist right now. It's like everybody just plays, and if you have a weight advantage, good job.
It's salvage. I mean, we know after 20 novels and multiple anthologies, there are lots of different species of beings who call home, in the Salvage Title universe. And so there's, you can't reasonably have a y'all team face off against a league off. I mean, that's just not, you're not going to be able to make that work. And so I had to come up with a way to kind of level all of that out so that we have, and the classes was kind of my answer to that. So humans are in the cruiser league. We can hang with the mid class.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely would any of our kind be able to step up to the Mauler leagues. We're just not big enough. Even the biggest of us is not big enough to be able to play at that level.
Yeah. No, I even like the names, the Mauler League, the Cruiser. I mean, Cruiser's an actual weight class, but
yeah. They compete for the Bowden Cup, by the way.
Okay.
Just throw that out there.
Okay.
So, all my Florida State faithful. There's a couple of FSU Easter eggs in here, with one in particular that are super sweet, by the way. So right. If you're a fan of the Noel faithful, then you'll have some stuff in here that'll make you smile. And if not, it's not anything that's going to shoot over your head that you need to know. So you'll be fine.
It sounds like you got a lot of Easter eggs in there. So, but before we wrap up here, let's talk about you're a pretty prolific writer. So if you're looking for some stuff to read, if you enjoy The Last Argonaut, which here it is, and if you don't, I don't know what's wrong with you. You got. I like to pick on the fans. It's
yeah, no worries, man.
You talked about the 4HU. You've written in the 4HU.
Yep.
Here are a few novels here. Let's see. You've written with Chris a couple times. The anthology. Freebird Rising. Yeah, that's.
Yep.
And then you have your Mako series.
Yep.
What's that one about?
So the Mako series was actually how I got my start. Mako is about 5 friends from college who all went to Florida State. Mm-hmm. They are about 10 years removed from graduation, so all in their kind of early 30s, living in different cities. We've got families, we've got careers, we've got life happening. And so, Friday nights, they all make an agreement that we're going to get together online and we're going to play this game that everybody is apparently gaga about, right? It's called Mako Assault. Mm-hmm. For them, it's really more or less just a way to stay connected and get together and spend time together and hang out. But, they all bring to the table, as you always have in a team, everybody brings a different skill to the table. And when you put that together, they're a pretty formidable force. And so they become the first crew on the planet to beat this game. So congratulations, you won the grand prize. You get to fly out to the West Coast and meet the game developer, participate in developing the beta, the follow-up to this. And yeah, drinks for all. And that's when they find out that, newsflash, guys, you were never actually playing a game. You were being tested and you were being trained. Welcome to the war. And so, that kind of video game to real life element, that's not anything new. I mean, anybody who watched The Last Starfighter knows that. Anybody who read Ender's Game kind of knows that. But what I wanted to do with it was kind of bring to this, this element of a team and a collective. I grew up in the 80s, man. So like the A-Team totally one of my favorite shows, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
love having the straight man and the pretty boy and the crazy man and the big man. And like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got a role to play. And when you put them together, they're badasses.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to take that approach and bring that to that trope, which I had always loved because I was a huge fan of The Last Starfighter growing up. And so I wrote Mako, and there's action and suspense and there's romance and there's all of that in Mako. And I got to the end of it, and that was when it dawned on me that, oh crap, like this is a trilogy. There's there's no way this is over in a book. And it went from there. And I was really lucky. The first Mako book did really, really, really well, wilder than I could have ever expected it would. And and that really kind of gave me my momentum and my cash flow to be able to start my writing career from there. So that's kind of the Mako series. It's about this crazy crew of zany characters from present day Earth who just find themselves stuck in this craziest of situations, and they've got to lean on each other to find their way out of it. And that's book one. And then book two is them kind of embracing the struggle and realizing that, we're a part of this now. This is not something that we get to walk away from. Like, we are here, we have contributed. These are our people now. And we're not walking away from this fight. We're as invested as anybody, and we mean to see it through into the end. And that means, in the case of some characters, really paying a heavy price for that. But in the end, their success rises and falls on their ability to lean on each other. And that really is the beating heart of that trilogy of books. So that's what the Mako series is.
And then, last but not least, the one that brought us to the Last Argonaut, the Salvage Title Universe. You've written in a couple anthologies, and then, of
Yep.
course, you have your coup de grace to date, the Last Argonaut, which is out on Amazon right now. The link is in the show notes. It's in the chat here on the show, and of course, it's on the screen now. Go get your copy. I love the fact that you made up a whole new sport, and you have all those sports related Easter eggs in there. It sounds awesome. It reminds me of why I enjoy watching like sports movies and military movies and things like that. So it sounds like a good time. So before we go, congratulations on finishing the book. I know this is a lot of work, and congratulations for it. And I wish it all the success. It sounds great. Are people going to be able to see you out in the wild anytime soon? Are you going anywhere?
Yeah. I'll be at LibertyCon this summer, so
Mhm.
so I'll be around for that. For people who are around the Panhandle, Nick Steverson and I, and possibly Melissa Olthoff, if she
Mhm.
can break free, are going to do InfinityCon down in Tallahassee. And then I'm working on some stuff later on in the back half of the year that hopefully I'll be able to do. But yeah, I'm scheduled to see all of you guys in Chattanooga for LibertyCon, and we'll all catch up there.
Awesome. And what can we expect from you coming up? Do you have plans for another book, or what are you thinking?
I'm working on some stuff.
Mhm.
Not not quite ready to reveal that just yet, but I'm
All right.
working on some stuff. We'll
All
leave it
right.
at that.
All right, people. You got the teaser. We expect to see something from him in the future. And so you have a newsletter, right?
I do. Yeah,
Uh,
if you go to ianjmalone.net, right there's a sign up bar for my mailing list. Just drop your email address into that. I'll email you once per month. Unless there's just something massively going on that I want you to know about, I email you once a month. And I hate spam email. So
mhm.
you better know, if you sign up for my mailing list, I'm not going to give you what I don't want to put up with. So if I don't have something to tell you, I won't email you.
Awesome.
When you get an email from me, it's coming from me. It's not coming from a bot. I'm sending you the message. So, but yeah, if you go sign up for my mailing list, it's there. You get 3 free short stories. They are prequels to Mako, Freebird Rising, and Colonies Lost.
Awesome.
So you can get those ebooks, and away you go.
Yeah, and I say this every episode. Sign up for the newsletters if you want the most up to date information or future information for your favorite authors or publishers or
Yep.
whatever it is. That's the place to go.
Yeah.
And it's also important to follow your favorite authors on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, in this day and age, man, and I'm not telling the folks anything that they don't already know.
yeah.
The algorithms for social media are forever changing. And the bottom line for us as content creators
Mhm.
is they don't want you to see our content unless we're paying them to show it to you.
Right.
And it doesn't matter that you've told them, hey, I want to know what's going on with Ian J. Malone or Marisa Wolf or Melissa Olthoff.
Hmm.
They don't want to show you that. They want to show you the content from the people that are paying them money to show you content.
Right.
If you get a newsletter, you're going to get it every time.
Yep.
You're not beholden to an algorithm on that. You're going to get it every time. So
Yep.
if there's an author that you're interested in hearing from and you want to know when they got new stuff going on, follow them on social media because that's where you can engage with them.
Hmm.
But if you want the news, yep, newsletter all day long, baby.
Yep. And same thing with ChrisKennedyPublishing.com. Sign up for their newsletter. You get free stuff. You could potentially get on the list to be a pre-reader, and all that. Now, Ian, you also produce stuff for the Patreon channel, right?
I do. Yeah, there's an author reading show that CKP puts out called CKP Confidential.
Mm-hmm.
And that is early readings from books that have not come out yet.
Okay.
So, like, if you're excited that the Misfits is out now, well, congratulations. If you had been a Patreon subscriber, you would have gotten an early reading from the Misfits back in like January.
Yeah.
I got a reading this week from Casey Moores
Mm-hmm.
from a new 4HU Depic novel that's coming out later on, and I want to say it's May, but I
Mm-hmm.
got that this week, and we're in the middle of March.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what CKP Confidential is meant to be, is to give Patreon subscribers, CKP Patreon subscribers, kind of an early look at what's coming down the pike, and also give them actual readings from that. It's not just here's the author talking about it. It's we're going to read you for the next 10 or 15 minutes an excerpt from that book that nobody's seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, that's what that
Awesome.
is.
Awesome. Thanks. So before we go, let's do our ads for some affiliated channels. Of course, we've got the Dudes in Hyperspace, produced by yours truly here, Ian Malone, and also the Future Books podcast on found everywhere where you find podcasts, including the CKP YouTube channel. Latest episode with Jason Cordova, brought to you by Shark Flight Media, and the host being Randall Willis. Some of our affiliated YouTube channels, we've got Casey Zell. Go watch Ian's episode on that came out on
That was a
Thursday.
fun conversation, guys. Like, really,
Yeah.
Casey is always a fun host on her show, but she totally just threw off the cuffs and we just went all over the place on that one. It was a fun chat.
Yeah, I listened to that one before this show, so I didn't say a lot of the same stuff. So
Yeah.
But no, it was a good episode. Case is very entertaining, and then you two together is a pretty good show. So I invite you to go check that out. Did I already say Marisa Wolf, which this is a little bit of nepotism. This is my wife. Go and check out her YouTube channel. We're going to be starting to put more stuff on there. And
Lots
then,
of shenanigans.
Yes, shenanigans abound. And then World Maker Books, that's Joy and Mark Wandry, where they do book reads or chapter reads from previous Mark Wandry novels. Go check them out. They're putting stuff out just about every week.
Cool.
So go check that out. It's a free audiobook, and from the people who made it. So and I think that's all I've got. And so, Ian, thank you very much. Congratulations on getting this book. I know you worked hard on it. It sounds awesome, and it sounds like a passion project, and I'm happy for you.
It really was, man. I never thought that I would ever get a chance to put those two worlds together, right? Like my background as a sports writer and then my background as a sci-fi writer. I always thought it'd be cool, but I just never really saw a scenario by which those two worlds would collide for me. And when Kevin approached me about this at LibertyCon a couple of years ago, or at Fantasy a couple of years ago, I was just like, well, okay, I guess this is finally it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier on in the interview, man, I just really appreciate those guys, and Kevin in particular,
Mm-hmm.
giving me the room to really let this one marinate, because I felt like it really kind of needed to. This was not a story that I could really crank out in 5 months and be like, here you go. Like, I felt like it really kind of would have cheapened the story. I feel like by giving it time to really soak and marinate, it
Mm-hmm.
really brought out the heart and the emotion of what is this story. And I can't stress that enough. I know there are a lot of people who read sci-fi that are like, I'm a sports fan. And I get that. That's fine. But this is a good story. And I would certainly encourage you to give it a shot, because this is a crew of characters that you're going to want to root for by the time it's over with. So give them a shot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, are you happy with it, man?
I love it.
That's awesome.
I'm proud. I the night I turned it into my editor, I poured a big old glass of bourbon, and I told my wife, I said, I don't know how this one's going to turn out. It was such a massive undertaking. Like, there's kind of a forest for the trees thing there. I mean, there's so much that you've got to build in this thing, from the game to the characters to the world to the conflict to the drama to the payoff. Like, there's a lot of heavy lifting to do here. And so you can cross all your T's and dot all your I's as best you can as a writer. But until somebody else who is not familiar with any of it can put eyes on it to really tell you, you got it, like you didn't miss anything, it's covered, you still kind of wonder, And the night I turned it in, I told my wife, I said, Natalie, I was like, I think I got it. I'll know when the editor comes back, but I really think this is something special. And I'm really proud that I got to be the one who got to write this story.
That's awesome.
I'm proud that I was the one who got to tell this story to the world.
All right. So, last question before we go.
Yeah.
Is this a one-off, or can we expect more out of this story?
We will see. The Last Argonaut is totally made to be a standalone story. There is not any kind of a lingering thread per se that's going to cliffhanger you in this one. It is a standalone story.
Okay.
Could there be more? Sure. As long as Warball is being played, there's always a story to be told in that world. I've made this comparison before. Nobody ever wanted Major League 2. We didn't need that. One Major League was fine.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we love the replacements. It's because there wasn't a replacements 2. In this day and age, when everything's got to be a trilogy and everything's got to be a franchise and a series, and man, I mean, sometimes the best movies are the ones that there was just one. And so, listen, is the Last Argonaut that type of story? Quite possibly. Listen, if it blows up and gazillions of people buy it and we need another one, then I will do my best to give you the best follow-up I can possibly give you.
All right, good to hear.
I wrote it knowing this is probably going to be the only one. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. And people, before we go, next episode of Inside CKP is going to be this Tuesday, March 21st, with a host of or a panel of authors for Bonds of Valor, the next CKP fantasy anthology. We'll see you all there. Ian, congratulations. Thanks for coming on. I'm happy for you. And to everybody else, we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.